What do you think are the factors for the Brazilian market that are potentially holding your growth?
We are obsessed about being the best. And being the best does not rely on money.
Love it.
In the ranks of Brazil, we are the first loved brand in the country.
Many people think that once you have the super app, everybody just starts buying everything from you.
Who is the best service provider of the country? We lead this. We respect options. In Brazil, it's different. We are not a high-income country. You don't operate in one country. You operate, in our case, in 1,500 cities. If you have a few stores, if you had a few chains in a city, you cover 100% of the area because it's very dense.
Hello, everyone. We are back on Boolanga Talks. And today we have our fantastic guest. It's Diego Barreto. Great to have you. Great to see you. Thank you very much for joining and tuning into this conversation. And I'm super excited about today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of iFood. Welcome, Diego.
Hello. Thanks very much for the invitation, Stefan. I'm here in Brazil reading all your posts on LinkedIn and getting your messages, and you never invite me. I was waiting for this.
We're here. We finally got here, and I'm super excited about
That's cool.
Today. Thank you very much for joining. And I'm sure it's going to be a very, very insightful conversation today about iFood, about Brazilian market in general. And to start, could you please share about yourself and about your journey?
Sure. So, Stefan, I'm a Brazilian that comes from the countryside of Brazil. My father went to the law school and became an entrepreneur, and I believe that this journey could be the same for me. So I went to the law school as well, but I understood that my father was an exception. So I did a career change in Brazil after a few years practicing law. I went to finance. I had a journey, a very interesting journey in the most largest corporations here in Brazil. And at a certain point in 2014, I went to IMD Business School in Switzerland to get my MBA. And there I was in front of a totally new discussion about the digital technology. And sounds weird when you talk about digital technology being something new, but in 2014, Facebook was just buying Instagram. We were not talking about TikTok, right? I mean, Amazon was a great company, but was not the Amazon that is right now. I mean, WhatsApp it wasn't necessarily the global phenomenon of today, and so on and so forth. So when I come back to Brazil with this whole idea of the impact of digital technology in mind, I start to search for some opportunities here while working in one of the largest corporations in Brazil. And I received an invitation from Movile, which is the company that acquired iFood back in 2013. And I went there. I just left a great career where I was a finance director of one of the largest corporations here to go to Movile to make 40% of my annual earnings. So I paid a big cost to come here and to try to understand what would happen with Brazil. And back there, iFood was nothing. I spent 2 years in a vertical of tickets, online tickets like Eventbrite in USA. And after 2 years, I was invited to join iFood. So I'm talking about 2018, more or less. And then I joined as CFO and Chief of Strategy. I had a great journey with the fund of $500 million back in 2018, with the expansion of the 3P to the 1P, and then to the other verticals, the pandemics and the fintech. And so I had the chance to spend the 6 years in a great journey here. And this year, I had the chance to take over as CEO once Fabrício, who was the previous CEO and now chairman of the board of iFood, took over as Proso CEO.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's quite a journey. And we're super privileged to have you here and absorb all of your experience. I have a lot of questions about iFood and about Brazilian market. But before we dive deeper into the topics, can you please share with our listeners about iFood? Because not many
Yeah.
people understand how big Brazil is and how huge iFood itself is, and
Yeah.
all the cool projects that you guys do within the team.
Yeah. So iFood today is an ecosystem that provides convenience not only online but also offline, having in its core food. So this is what iFood is today. The other way to explain iFood is iFood, it's a platform powered by AI. And I'm not talking about AI because it's a frenzy today. We do that since 2018. So it's a platform powered by AI that coordinates the value chain in order to maximize the efficiency of the stakeholders of this ecosystem, providing as a consequence convenience at the cheapest price possible. Another way to understand iFood is understanding that the sum of Toast in US, Instacart, and DoorDash, it's more or less what we do here at iFood. So these are three versions of what we do and who we are.
Fantastic. And you mentioned interesting pillars. So you mentioned DoorDash as probably logistics and food delivery.
Yeah.
You mentioned Instacart for grocery, and you mentioned Toast as the fintech part, or like more like offline restaurant part.
Both.
Mm. So you do
Both.
provide your own payment solutions. You provide the offline solutions for restaurants, and you're going further. Is it because you're already that big that you want to grow further, or is it the necessity for the market that you see?
No, there are many reasons to explain this entire movement, Stefan. So I'm gonna go back a few steps and explain how we evolved.
Right.
So we started as a pure food delivery company, using the marketplace as a business model. If you go back, Stefan, to 2011, 12, 13, almost 100% of the companies were marketplace. And those companies were the ones who were leading their markets. If you take a look today, the companies that were leading the market as marketplace were disrupted and they were not leaders anymore. The only exception is iFood. And why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because in our core, there is one thing called innovation. And innovation comes from the culture that we establish here, from the org chart that we establish here, and from the management model that we started here. So I'm not saying that like the beautiful words like innovation and things like this. I'm saying we prepared ourselves to innovate constantly, not only understand the market moves, but also building the market moves, right? So we started as a pure marketplace back in 2018, when we start to see that the Android hardware was becoming popular in Brazil because prices were cheaper than the iPhone. We saw that for the first time, we would have the chance to build a logistics platform and through the gig economy, make closer this service to the restaurants and to the customers. So that's what we did in 2018. So we evolved from 3P to 1P. Back in 2018, Stefan, the only word that was mentioned here in Latin America was super app. That's the word that everybody was repeating. And with our maximum strength, we said, no, we're not going to do that. A super app is not something that you build because you find it's beautiful. You build because you have the assets. And we said, what I will continue to do is to build assets. If this translates into a super app in the future, that's great. If not, that's great as well, as soon as I have the assets. So while everybody was trying to do 10, 20 initiatives, we decided to focus. And until to 2020, we were 100% focused on restaurant delivery, online delivery. That's it. By 2020, we decided to do the first step outside the restaurant segment. And then we went to the supermarket. And with that, we discovered a few things. The first one was the necessity to build a logistics that was not only powered by bicycles and motorcycles, but also by cars and vans. Therefore, we built this asset and we started to grow very fast the grocery business. And while we were doing this, we understood that the sum of the assets that we built in the restaurant segment and also in the grocery segment allowed us to go to other verticals without many efforts. So I'm basically mentioning here drugstores, pet shops, shopping malls, meaning all the stores that is inside a shopping mall, and also beer, beverage and convenience. So as soon as we just used the same assets to do that, we started to see a great cause and effect. And the effect here was the increasing of frequency. And this called our attention because we saw business that have very difficult economics to live independently, having the chance to increase fastly or reaching the maturity fastly because of this impact. And with that, Stefan, we started to understood that the company was not only a restaurant company, but more than this, a convenience company, right? As a consequence of that, we started to see many problems in these value chains regarding payments, regarding credit, regarding many aspects of the fintech space. That's when we started to invest in a company outside iFood. We let them evolve the more they could, having access to our assets. They proved the thesis. As soon as they proved the thesis, we bought the 100% of the company and incorporated them. And therefore, we started to have a fintech from one day to another, not only, again, doing acquiring, payments, but also doing credit. And as a consequence of this, we started to think about ourselves if the world was 100% based on an app or should be based on other channels. And that's when we started to see ourselves touching the online and the offline world. Everything started with the WhatsApp business. We understood how to do the acquisition of orders through WhatsApp. As a consequence, from WhatsApp in the hand of the consumer, we went to the hand of the waiter in the restaurant. And that became a tool for him. And that's when we started our journey in the management system, ERP systems, inside the offline world. And then we evolved. So therefore, today we are an online to offline that brings convenience based mainly on food, but touching the adjacencies around food.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for such a deep answer. And I think it is very fascinating how you explained that everybody was chasing the super app. And I don't think it is the LATAM thing. It is... it was a trend a lot worldwide, and I spoke with some of the friends at Kareem, and they also mentioned that many people think that once you have the super app, everybody just starts buying everything from you. But in the end of the day, if your products suck, if your verticals are not as good, your super app is not worth anything, and you're actually losing clients even in the verticals that are working well for you. So you have to have everything working great. And that's when the super magic of the super app comes into the place. Very interesting. Thank you. And diving deeper into the market, thank you for sharing about iFood. Can you please share about the dynamics of the market in general in Brazil, about the competition? How do you see it? How does the competition help you to grow? And maybe your unique value propositions. Why do customers choose you?
For sure. So, Stefan, first of all, I really like to define the parts that defines the market. So many people look to the food delivery space and think about an app. And I think this is a huge mistake. Every time that you do that, you start to lose, first of all, the entire side of the market. Second of all, the capacity to innovate. And third of all, to respect the what your client wants, because not necessarily he wants to use this, right? So the market in Brazil is defined by a third being food being asked by phone, a third by other channels such as WhatsApp, and a third by apps. So more or less, that's how the market is structured. So when we look to competition, we're thinking about all of this, right? Someone may say, okay, but telephone is something from the past, it will die. Eventually it will die. Eventually
But not now.
not. It depends. And I like when you say not now, because what is behind your answer and what we believe as well is the fact that if this business is a local business, actually you don't operate in one country. You operate, in our case, in 1,500 cities. And because Brazil is so large and it's so diverse in all the aspects, actually, you cannot assume that you will be operating in only one channel and you're going to be the winner of this entire market. So competition for me comes from the telephone, comes from many channels that you can access a restaurant, and comes from the app per se, right? Throughout the years, we saw many companies coming to Brazil, especially international ones, such as Glovo, Rappi, Uber Eats. We also saw through the entrepreneurship many options being born here in the country. And during this 12 years of age that we have, iFood was always leading this market, considering the entire parts here, all the parts. And why? The answer for us, it's quite simple. First of all, we are obsessed about being the best. And being the best does not rely on money.
Love it.
We don't rely on money. Money is not the problem. We have a very strong shareholder. The company was born positive free cash flow. We are positive free cash flow. That's not the point. So we saw many people here coming with $1 billion in their pockets, and they didn't change the market. Why? Market doesn't change because of your money. Of course, money is important. Of course, money brings you resources. Of course, a lot of things, but also money distracts you, makes you think about things that you are not, but you believe you are. So let me give you one example. With money, Stefan, you can buy all these slots in the television and be known in the entire country. But what builds brand? It's making your brand being loved. So let me give you one example. In the ranks of Brazil, we are the first one brand, loved brand in the country. But think about this. Think about this. I'm not talking about the brand in our segment, in our space. I'm talking in the country. That's the first point. But remember, And as good as I do, that we're talking about a business that I don't own the moving parts. I don't own the cooking time of the restaurant. I don't own the delivery time of the rider. And despite of this, I am the loved brand. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Stefan, we bring services to a level that is not common. So in the ranks that defines from a qualitative point of view and quantitative point of view, who is the best service provider of the country, we lead this. When we talk about AI and when we say that we do that since 2018, is to reach this kind of results. That's the second thing. The third thing is we respect options. If the restaurant wants a few things, I respect this and I try to be the best one in these things. If the consumer, if the driver does the same, I do the same. I try to be the best one to make people come and love our ecosystem. So when people ask what make us the leader of this market throughout these 12 years, the answer for me is below the aspects that I just mentioned to you, there are two components, one called culture and another one called management model. You can have money, you can have the best software when you created your company, you can have everything that you want. If you don't have culture, if you don't have management model, you are not able to go through all these transformation phases. And that's why for us, every time that a competitor arrive here in Brazil, we are keen to fight, not with money, with our culture and with our management model.
Fantastic. Fascinating. Thank you for the answer. And I personally know a lot of team members in iFood, and the management strategies that you guys use. And I think it is very progressive. And I really enjoy working and speaking with the teams of iFood. But at the same time, there are other factors outside of your powers, right? And what do you think are the factors for the Brazilian market that are potentially holding your growth? Or if what has to change within the market for you to grow even faster? And is there even place for you to grow? Because you are already like in 1,500 cities, but
Yes.
still the penetration, is it deep enough? Can you go further? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, Stefan, we are obsessed by growth. Even though we are, if you take all the public information regarding delivery companies around the globe, we are on top 3 in terms of growth and top 3 in terms of profitability. We are capable to balance both aspects of the business. But then you say, okay, but do you want to grow more, or will you continue to grow at this pace for more 10 years? And the answer is yes. And how are we going to do that? So first of all, we have an asset that was built, and that's a good example to tell you about culture and how we like to innovate, how we like to iterate, and how we understand from the failure what will drive us in the future. We always knew that the best way to continue to grow for 30 years is through frequency. It's not through client acquisition. We already did that. We have 55 million clients, active clients in our platform.
Wow.
So Brazilian is a 200 million people. If you take people after 70, below 18, and the low income class also part, you will basically reach what we already reached in terms of client base. So we knew that this would be reached at a certain point. So the game, it's about frequency, right? So if the game is about frequency, a loyalty program, it's what can change everything. So we started to test a loyalty program in 18. We failed miserably. We did again in 19, we failed miserably. 20, failed. 21, failed. 22, second semester, we found the signs of a great loyalty program. And what does mean a great loyalty program? First of all, it's economically viable. Don't come and talk to me about your loyalty program if it's not viable, because if it's not viable, you cannot scale. Second of all, people love. Third of all, it already have a proven value proposition, already have right now a proven value proposition. So 2 years after that, we already have around 30%, 35% of the orders coming from this loyalty program. What does it mean? That I found a way to drive frequency up. And I'm not only doing that in the food vertical, but since this month, we are also incorporating in the loyalty program drugstores, beverage and convenience, pet shop, and shopping malls. What does it mean? That I'm unlocking a new wave of frequency to bring to my base. And as soon as I do that, I also increase the retention of these other categories that tends to have a lower retention. So here's one bucket of growth. The second bucket comes from logistics. We are more and more reducing the cost to serve in logistics. And the more I do that, I not only serve restaurants quite well, but I also open other opportunities into the convenience space. I also open the chances to go to other verticals that, with minor adjustments, allows me to unlock new TAMs and SAMs to make the company continue to grow. This is a big focus here, reducing more and more and more and more and more the cost to serve through in the logistic business unit. And the third thing is the offline world. So today, we already have tools, for example, that helps waiters to acquire the orders in the saloon. We already have kiosks serving restaurants and shopping malls. We already have the KDS, which is the management platform that restaurants use in the kitchen to administrate, to manage everything. We already have a POS integrated with a CRM. Every time that Stefan swipes his card, the restaurant knows that Stefan generally buys 5 times in that restaurant, online and offline, per month. And therefore, the best thing to do in terms of promotions is X, Y, or Z because of this. So everything that you saw in your life that is a POS that is just used to swipe your card and doesn't have anything additional asset for you as a merchant, we changed that and now we have this. So growth will come from frequency plus the capacity that logistics have to enable us to go to other verticals, plus this offline world. But the beauty here, Stefan, and that's the main point here in the end, is the sum of these things must impact every single merchant in a whole. What I'm trying to say is I'm not building a conglomerate. We have an ecosystem, a restaurant that the more the restaurant uses these tools, the more he sells. That's not my value proposition. That's the fact. That's the numbers. That's what I present every single month in my reports to my shareholder. So that's where the growth will come from.
Very interesting. Thank you. And I can only second that. Like even not, I've never been to Brazil, and I've never tried iFood, but I had chances to work with your team a little bit, and the passion with which the team is approaching the growth of the whole industry, not just iFood, but the whole industry, and how you guys are working with the merchants, restaurants, how you're trying to educate them, how which programs that you provide to them, and which growth points you're trying to find to them, not just within iFood but outside of iFood, so that they can grow their businesses, become more than just small mom and pop shops, and excel the industry, the HoReCa industry in general, is very fascinating to me. At the same time, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm very glad to listen this from you, because what you are saying in the end is that you're materializing the culture of the company. Of course, we could elaborate much more, but I'm happy to listen that you were able to get the signs from the people that you were in contact.
Yes, for sure. And I really think that you guys are doing fascinating job with the restaurants. At the same time, grocery is like new black for the aggregators. In Europe, it's massively growing vertical, and it's growing very fast in the Middle East. Across the globe, grocery is number one topic nowadays, where companies are growing their volumes, frequency, and trying to get the profitability. What do you guys do in the grocery sector? Because Brazil specifically is quite tricky in terms of grocery, I believe. As an outsider, in 2021, 2022, we saw companies like Nana, Daki, and few others who are tried to tackle these vertical and serve what is underserved, and saw a lot of opportunities for people who are geographically not capable to reach some goods. And I was told many times from different players within Brazil that grocery is very important and key for the consumers. What does iFood do within this vertical, and how are you guys growing within groceries?
Yeah. So we really believe that groceries, it's an important part of the ecosystem. We are developing this vertical since 2020. And today we have 99% of the offer of Brazil in the platform. That's the first thing. The second thing is one of the top fastest vertical here at iFood. And the third thing is that's together with food, the main channel of 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 ads growth. So this is a business that is financially good, but I want to tell you something. It's a tough business, very tough, very, 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 very tough. And that's why we invested so heavily for so many years, even though the general trend 4 years ago was no, everything will be about dark stores. Everything will be about dark stores. The grocery marketplace doesn't work. It's a terrible service. It's true. I mean, if you play with dark stores, it's much better than the marketplace of groceries. That's true. However, if you crack the code on groceries, you have an asset with a great value, not only in terms, financially speaking, of valuation, but much more important than this, in terms of competitive landscape. And that's what we built here. We spent 4 years building a great operational playbook to allow the brick and mortar traditional chains understand how to operate online and offline at the same time, and understand how ads online would be a much better tool in terms of ROI for them compared to the investments that they do in the offline space. And that's what we're seeing. So when I tell the beautiful story about the groceries and how we will continue to deploy our resources there, I'm not talking about money anymore. I'm talking about time, focus, and etc. At the same time, I'm recognizing that reaching what we reached, and let me congratulate Instacart, what Instacart reached in terms of the company that they built, it's very hard. It's very hard because the experience tends to be very bad. We know that, we evolve it, but we believe we can evolve much more. And now we are going from a company that was doing two, three, four options for consumers in terms of the experience that they can get in grocery to 10 options, not only in terms of pricing, but also in terms of logistics, but also in terms of offer. So we are being able now to have much more intelligence to offer much better what the consumer wants in his house.
Great. And I think you touched a very interesting point that for some time, everybody was talking about the dark stores. It was topic number one. Billions were poured into it. And in many cases, then there are cases like India, like Middle East, where it worked and it works. But there are many places where it didn't. How do you think is this model viable in Brazil? And has iFood done ever anything with the dark stores, or maybe you're planning to do anything with it? Because Brazil itself, again, is very big geographically, and not everywhere people have the access to the major retail chains, right? And many players use this model to cover the places where there is just no mom and pop shops or no retail chains to buy stuff. Do you play or experiment with the dark store model in iFood?
Yes, we did, and we stopped it. So why we did? Because we try, we learn. We don't have problem to change our convictions. So back in 2019, we started to test. Uh, the results, Stefan, should be seen in particularly in the case of each country, because in our experience, what drives the success or not of this business model is very different from one country to the other. So let me give you a few examples to explain why we stop it, but not necessarily is not a good option in other countries. India is not well served in terms of merchants. The offer is limited in terms of the geographies that the main chains reach.
Right.
In Brazil, it's not the case. Brazil is well served.
Okay.
So if you need to build a dark store because there is a problem in offer, it can make sense. In Brazil, it doesn't. You are not solving this problem because there isn't this problem. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the dark store in the initial years, at least, and let me say initial like 5 to 10 years, it's a business of convenience. And convenience tends to be more expensive than business that are not made for convenience, which means that if you are in a rich country, you may play well because it's a rich country. People tend to be less sensitive to price. In Brazil, it's different. We are not a high income country. We are a mid income country. Therefore, every time that you serve with something that is more expensive than other thing, you tend to be in a niche. And that's one of the learnings that we had in Brazil. The business model per se was good. However, a niche in a few neighborhoods of a few cities, different from USA, that you go to New York, Austin, Denver, LA, and Miami, and you find a great university, great startups, great traditional companies, and great high schools, which means that there is a vibrant economic landscape In Brazil, that's not the case. It's very concentrated. So it's a good business. Yes, if you believe that niche business can be part of this definition of being a good business. So that's another variable. The third variable is that we were able to evolve quite well in the operational playbook of the marketplace. So when I tell you we increased the options to merchants, to drivers, to consumers in terms of logistics, pricing, and etc., and etc., and etc. What I'm talking is about this. It's about using an asset that already exists to serve a segment that was looking for an asset to serve it. So
Right.
that's why we tried. That's why we didn't continue. But we believe, again, I'm going to be very clear about this. I'm not saying that these aspects are the same in other countries. Actually, it's the opposite. So maybe in other countries it may work.
For sure. It's super different country to country. And it's really great that how you elaborated on it for Brazil and that you tried and you see that it's not working for you. And through trial and error, that's how the progress is achieved. And I think it is
And
in the DNA of iFood.
yeah, Stefan, if I could just give one additional example, because I know
100%.
that
Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
most of your audience is from outside Brazil. So just for them to figure out this, if you travel to US to the cities that I just mentioned 2 minutes ago, you will see a pattern, and the pattern in terms of urban infrastructure is there is a city center with 100 buildings, and then very, very, very large horizontal condominiums where people live, right? And then people commute every single day. That's not Brazil. Brazil, it's 100% the opposite. Brazil is a city, a country where the cities tend to be very dense with large buildings throughout the entire area. And condominiums are not the case. So it comes back to the fact that if you have a few stores, if you had a few chains in a city, you cover 100% of the area because it's very dense, different from US, for example.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'm really glad that we actually booked an hour and a half with you because I have so many more questions. And I think we will have two parts of this podcast.